Hi, I'm Richard Maraj, Senior Minister at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center, and I want to thank you for visiting our website and for tuning in to today's message. If you feel inspired by today's talk, I really encourage you to make a donation by hitting that button below and making a contribution to this ministry. It'll allow us to continue these messages online and to do the great work we do here at Unity of Phoenix, which is to inspire people to live better lives. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for your support, and we hope to see you at a Sunday real soon.
Morning again, everyone. All right, and a special shout out to everybody who watches us online, especially Herb. He has been watching us online since 2008. And he last year, for the first time, he visited Phoenix, and he actually attended the first service. And he just wanted to experience what he has been experiencing on video, live and in person. I think they posted his picture up on Facebook, or maybe it's up there now. So lots of love and appreciate. Great meeting you too, man. So how many people here have ever messed up, and messed up big, messed up in a way that, all right. How many people here, after messing up, really dreaded having to tell the person, the family member, the boss, the spouse, whoever, about your mess up? Anybody? And then how many people, in the fear of having to share that, there was a fear that you'd disappoint them or hurt them, or they'd be mad or think less of you or respect you or not even love you again? Anybody experience anything like that? Kind of reminds me of one of my favorite old bad jokes. See, I'm just trying to, want to give you advance on it. This is a joke just in case you don't recognize it as such, but here we go. Husband messed up big. He and his wife had this huge argument, and so bad argument, they decided not to talk to each other, give each other the silent treatment. And so 3 days of silence goes by, and then the husband realizes he's got an early business flight at 7 a.m. to catch a 7 a.m. flight to Chicago. But he always has trouble waking up, even with an alarm clock, so he needs his wife's help, but he doesn't want to break the silence. So he needs her help, and he decides to write her a note, put it on the side of her bed, and so that she'll see it before she goes to sleep. And it said, "Please wake me up at 5 a.m. So the next morning, he wakes up at 7:30. He has missed his flight. He is furious. His wife's not in the room. He's about to get up to find out why she would do that. And then he notices a note on his side of the bed, and it says, "It's 5 a.m., wake up." And so anyway. So, So I am absolutely convinced that every human being alive wants to live a life of happiness, health, of joy, of fulfillment and meaning. And I think that one of the absolute keys to living the life at the level of fulfillment that we want includes how well do you handle life when it isn't going your way? When we mess up, when there are traumas or mistakes, frustrations, disappointments, heartache, unexpected losses. You know, everybody wants a great life and we'd like it to be easy. And I would say it's easy to be happy when life is easy. But how do you find that deeper level of meaning when things aren't going our way? We're always shocked when things don't go our way like it's supposed to every single time. But Jesus gave us a clear reminder when he said, in this life there will be trials and tribulations. A part of this human experience is that things won't go the way we would like. There are obstacles and challenges. It's a part of the deal. But he also said, be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. Be of good cheer because you have the resources in you. You have God's light in you. You have amazing spiritual power to rise above and move through those situations. But it is not just rise above and move through them, but by moving through them and dealing with them, it gives us greater insight and wisdom. It deepens our faith, our level of appreciation, and our capacity to make an even greater difference in our lives and in the lives of others. So tonight we are in the final of our 4-week series on a book that I got to tell you has inspired me in amazing ways. And the book is called On Fire by John O'Leary. If you haven't been here, John O'Leary at the age of 9 was playing with fire in his family garage, and he wanted to use some gasoline, and it exploded, and it burned him, and he was burned 100% of his body, on 100%. 87% of those burns were 3rd degree. They did not think he would survive. He had to be bandaged from head to toe every day. Spent 5 months in the hospital, and had 24 skin graft surgeries, and they had to amputate all of his fingers. His book is entitled, it's on fire, 7 Choices to Ignite a Radically Inspired Life. We've covered the last 6, and here they are. Choice number 1 is to be fully responsible for your life. To not blame anyone or think someone else has got to save us, but to be fully responsible, because that's where our power is. It's not a burden, it's a liberating, exciting, empowering experience to accept full responsibility. Second thing is to not hide our shame or hurt or pain, especially from ourselves. Because when we hide our hurts, guess what? We can't help but also hide some of the beauty and brilliance and creativity. And third one is to choose to find meaning for your life. That when you're going through something different, what is your why? What is your purpose? Because when you have a purpose, it creates a drive that helps us move through any of the difficulties, because we know we will gain something. We will know we will benefit. The fourth one is to have an attitude that not only is appreciative and sees the good, but also to ask ourselves, what can I gain from this situation? How can this make me better? How can I make a greater difference? The fifth one is to choose to stretch. We can all get really comfortable in our comfort zones, but the only way to grow and expand is to actually reach out and do something different. Take a risk, take a chance in some area in our lives. Last week, the choice was to do a little more, to thank all those people who've done a little more that helped us get to where we are, but also be someone who does more to help someone in their life. So today we'll close with looking at choice number 7. So again, John's 9 years old. He's laying in the hospital, hadn't seen his family yet. And while he was in a lot of pain, it came to him, he realized that he really messed up. That he knew he wasn't supposed to play with fire. He knew he wasn't supposed to touch that gas can. He knew those things. And he felt like he really messed up, blowing up his parents' house, burning the house down and causing himself some injury. He was upset that he terrified his brother and his sister and his family. And even so in that space of having pain and realizing he realized he had messed up, it brought a lot of fear that his father would be mad, that the family would be upset at him and what he had done. And he actually remembered just 2 weeks before he'd messed up, that they went to church and the father said, and he wanted to go play football with his friends. He said, "Father, yeah, you can go play, just change your clothes." Well, he wanted to be there in a hurry, so he didn't change his clothes. And when he got back after playing, all his church clothes, his Sunday clothes, were all stained up with grass. And his father got mad and he sat him down. He said, "Why'd you do this? Didn't we agree? We talked about it. You said you wouldn't, and you still went and did it." And so some of that energy kind of lingered, the fear. And the fact is, every one of us, when we make a mistake or do something that isn't right, we have this fear of getting in trouble, the fear of being punishment, the fear that we will be thought less of or be rejected. A fear, that I might end up being alone. A fear that I've ruined my life. A fear that I might never be happy again. And I think, we get triggered in all these things when we mess up, that we go to a place of fear. I have to say, this book has had a lot of personal meaning for me. I think when you hear somebody's story, they trigger your stories. And this has triggered a lot of my stuff as well. On the day of my car accident, while the driver fell asleep at the wheel, I wasn't wearing my seatbelt. So I was actually thrown out of the car and hit by the same car. I thought I was actually going to die. I didn't realize that I had a serious injury at the time, but I knew something was wrong. And as I laid there in pain, I thought, man, have I messed up? My parents are going to be so upset. And even more than upset, disappointing your parents is a big deal. I felt like, oh man, I've really let them down. And just like John, I'd messed up 2 weeks earlier, or about 10 days earlier myself. Now, I was 10 years older than him, so I messed up bigger than soiling my Sunday clothes. It was exam time for my final year in university, and after one of our exams, we didn't have exams for a couple of days, a friend got a 6-pack of beer, and we went to the park. It was this place, it's called Princess Point, and there's like a secluded area up a hill by some trees, and so we had a beer, and then a police officer passed by, and so we got nailed with a ticket for driving in public, and it was like $120. But fun didn't end there, because that night there was a house party, and I was outside standing on the grass having a beer, and that's legal. But then I stepped on the sidewalk, And I believe that same guy must have been following me. $220 tickets in a day. Talk about messing up. I was terrified that I didn't have that kind of money. I'm a kid. And so, every one of us, when we mess up, there's this fear. Will they love me? Will I be okay? And as much as we go to fear, and as powerful as fear can be in our lives, there is always a way to heal fear. There is always a path to heal fear. And that path is love. So John is lying in the hospital bed. And remember in the beginning of the story, he said he saw his mom first? It actually wasn't. He said he actually remembered that he saw his dad first. And so that's who he was most afraid of that would be mad at him. So when his dad saw him, his dad said, "Hello, little monkey." And he said, "I'm so proud." He said, "John, I love you so much. I love you so, so much." And just hearing those words, "I love you," all that fear, all that shame, all that upset just subsided. It was soothed and he felt comforted. He felt a level of peace. He felt safe. He felt cared for. One of the amazing things is you can feel sad and still feel loved. And he said love saved him that day. Love was the thing that helped him let go of all that fear and that anxiety of messing up. And just like John, it's interesting. I always talk about how I saw my mom when I came out of the ambulance. But I totally forgot. I saw my dad first. My car accident happened 40 minutes away from my hometown. My father had to drive 40 minutes away to come to the ER where I was. And so they were taking tests and asking questions and all this stuff. And then so my dad walked in, and I could see he had a look of concern on his face. But I could feel his presence. And then he came over and he put his hand on me, and he looked at me. He didn't say a word, but I could feel his strength, and I could feel his love and care for me. But he and the doctors, they were talking right in the same room, and he was saying, "I think this is a spinal cord injury, and you need to be prepared. Your son may never walk again. And this recovery period is probably going to be a long time. You can leave your son here in this trauma unit, or you can take him back, or what would you like to do?" And so I was heartbroken when I heard the word spinal cord and long healing process. And then my father said, "I want my son close to home." And I don't know what it was, but hearing my father say, "I want my son close to home," just made me feel safe. I could feel his love and care for me. And even though I had to have a 40-minute ambulance ride by myself, while I was scared and sad, there was something in me that just felt his love and knew that everything was going to be okay. It's amazing how sometimes we can let fear guide our lives. John, many years later, met a family member at a party, and the family member said, "Hey, you know what I do when I first meet someone?" The guy was in the war. He fought in the war. And John said, "What do you do?" He said, "Well, I turn to the side, and I cock my fist, and I get ready. Just in case they want to hit me, I can fire back and drop them first." And he says, "That's how you greet people every time?" Got to be prepared. And at first that sounds insane. To meet someone initially with a fear that they will punch you and you need to be prepared to punch back, that sounds ridiculous and crazy. But how often do we have our defenses up and our wall up right off the bat? How often do we have our guard up? How often do we say things even before something happens? I know I'll probably get hurt in this relationship. Hasn't even started. And we do that. It's almost like having our fists clenched. Anybody ever, get in a cranky mood, and then, there's someone you're kind of mad at, and you say, "Well, if they say anything to me, I'll tell them off. If they say something bad or mean, I'll be prepared." And you see that person, and they say, "Hello," and I say, "What is that supposed to mean? Don't talk to me like that. You got a lot of nerve." And so it's like, what? We have a lot of preconceived fears and anxieties, judgments and stories we tell ourselves that live in our heads, that drive us crazy, that bring us sadness, bring us frustration. Mark Twain once said, "I've had many worries, I've had many problems. Thank God most of them never happened." And the point is that we make up a lot of stuff in our heads. There's a lot of fear-based living that we do, things that stop us from, I didn't want to leave my home for years, afraid what people say, what people do, all this kind of stuff. We do this kind of stuff. We're afraid to be rejected. But the answer always is love. Then we love ourselves, allow people to love us. That love is the thing that will always heal and transform. Love is the thing that soothes. Love is the thing that heals. We could be going through the most difficult time, but to know someone loves you, that is the thing that makes it easier. That's the thing that helps us get through any difficulty. It drops our defenses. It opens our hearts. It brings us peace and healing. We get more awareness and clarity. And sometimes that love needs to come to us for our mistakes and mess up, to be able to love ourselves through those, have compassion for ourselves. One of the other aspects of love is that, one thing John knew is that his parents loved him. But when you go through a situation where your body's appearance is altered or its level of function, there's always that, will anybody really love me romantically? Will someone really be attracted for me and care for me with all this stuff to deal with? One of his biggest fears was he had no fingers, so he wouldn't be able to hold someone's hands. Would that really repulse someone in ever wanting to be with him? He really wanted to meet someone. He really wanted to have a girlfriend. He went to an all-boys school, so that didn't really help the cause. And he was a little upset. He never got kissed in high school. He was in college, never been kissed. And so he was at a party in the second semester and met a woman named Beth that he thought was just so beautiful. And so they had a nice time talking and visiting. They even danced. And he wanted to ask her out at the end, but he thought, why would she go out with me? She probably wouldn't. And so why not save myself the rejection and just not say anything? So he didn't ask her out that night, but they became friends. They started hanging out quite a bit. And then after a few weeks, he asked her out. Or after a few months, he asked her out. And he kept thinking, oh, she's probably going to say, what took you so long, John? But instead, she said, John, you are like a brother to me, which is the last thing any guy wants to hear. And so he was crushed by it. And so he tried to make a joke and said, great, I've always wanted another sister. And so they started being friends, continue being friends again. A year goes by. His feelings have gotten even stronger. And he asked her out again. And she says, John, nothing has changed. I love you. I think you're a great guy, but we're just friends. And it's really, I feel like you're my brother. And he said to himself, I have 4 freaking sisters already. I don't need another sister. He said freaking, I'm just quoting him. And so then he was so devastated about this that he decided to do some journaling and kind of have a little look at himself. So in his journaling, when he looked at what it meant to be in love, he realized how selfish he was. That being in that relationship, he wanted to help save him, help keep him from being lonely and rejected, help him feel normal. That all his time he realized he was spending time with her. He didn't really get to know her that much because he was always at some level afraid of being alone and trying to convince her to like him. And so he realized that he needs to love unconditionally and not love trying to manipulate to get it to be the way he wanted it to be. So he began to hang out and actually get to know her. Actually listen and care about her feelings with no expectations, with no attachments, no string. And then another year, and she says to him, John, I think I'm developing some feelings for you. Would you like to go out? He said, I don't date my sister. And so, okay, he didn't say that, but he thought of saying it. He said, let's give it a try, and they gave it a try. They dated, and 3 years later, they got married. They have 4 children, and they're very happy. I love in the book, he also said, that relationships aren't easy. They take work. Things don't always go well. There's arguments and stuff, but that's a part of the deal, and he's happy and more fulfilled than he imagined he would be. And what I really like is that in the process of knowing love and for family and friends, there is a realization from that it needs to be for everyone. That the only way we could have real love in our lives is extend ourselves to think about other people, to think about their feelings, their needs, their desires. Can you imagine a little child misbehaving and a parent would say or think to them something like, I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. No matter how you act or behave, I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. And in his seminars, he actually has people say that, because whether it's somebody who cuts us off and waves at us with one finger on the highway, we need to say in our heads, I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. So whether it's a family member or a friend or a stranger or a clerk that's a little cranky at us at the grocery store, we need to think, I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. Because that's beginning to open ourselves to extend that unconditional love to everyone. Because we all want love. We all deserve love. We're all created out of love. We are all brothers and sisters. And we need to extend that love to everyone. I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. Together. I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. Turn to the person left to right and say, I love you and there's nothing you can do about it. So someone cuts you off on the highway. Your thought is? Somebody, difficult boss or coworker bugging you at work? How you feel about me and Reverend Jimmy? Hey, we'll take it any way we can get it. So anyway, and that's the deal. We've got to open our hearts to love in all different ways. One of the things I really was powerful for me was, so I'm a member of a family of 10 kids, 5 boys, 5 girls, and my parents. And I've always felt loved and supported. I don't know how someone could go through something hard without being loved. And one of the things is, when I was in that rehab hospital for the 5 months, every day my mom came to visit me. Almost every day my dad. Sister would take a bus from Toronto every day to come visit me and take the bus back to work in the next morning. And I was in a room with 4 people, and what we noticed is some people didn't get anybody that visited them. Sometimes once in a while, sometimes never at all. And so I always had people loving on me, visiting me. And what I really loved was my dad would work the room and talk to people. And he would start developing friendships and bring them stuff. And it just warmed my heart, because my dad wasn't treated very well as a child. It was very abusive. It was cold. His mom died when he was 11. He went to grow up with family, and they didn't treat him well. So to see my father extending himself and loving people, knowing they couldn't do anything about it, and really brightened their life, and it brightened that experience in those 5 months. Love is the thing that heals fear. Love is the thing that gets us through difficult times. Love is the things that will help us through struggles. Because when you feel and know that someone loves you, it gives you the support and the strength and the hope that everything's going to be okay. Emmett Fox once wrote, "There is no difficulty that enough love will not conquer. There is no disease that enough love will not heal. There is no door that enough love will not open. There is no gulf that enough love will not bridge. No wall that enough love will not throw down. No sin that enough love will not redeem. It makes no difference how deeply seated the problem may be, how hopeless the outlook, how muddled the tangle, how great the mistake. A sufficient realization of love will dissolve it all. If only you could love enough, you would be the happiest and most powerful being in the world." 7th choice is about love, to choose love in all ways. So John in his office has a bulletin board with a lot of letters and inspirational sayings on it. And one of the things he has on it is a picture of him and an elderly lady in a hospital bed. And her name is Sister Gertrude. He was speaking at an event for SSM Health. It was a hospital that was began by nuns. And it was quite a long time. All the nuns were in retirement homes. And Sister Gertrude, he wanted to visit and just find out information to do his talk. And so she was there in bed, and he entered, and she waved and said, come sit down. And he sat down. He said, come closer, and asked him questions about his life and his family and everything. And so she had been in bed for the last 6 years. But this woman was vibrant. She was engaged. She was alive. She was passionate. And she said these words to John as he was leaving. John, listen to me. You need to wake up. Your family needs you to lead them. It's time to wake up now. No more living idly. No more excuses. No more sleepwalking. It's time to wake up. And that stunned John, but in a good way. She could have easily said, hey, have a good life. Be happy. Take care of your family. Pray every day. But instead, she said, wake up. And by the way, she was 105 years old. And he reflected on the words, wake up. Why'd she tell me to wake up? And then he reflected and realized how many times he'd heard that wake up in his life. When he was in school, he was a daydreamer. Teacher would say, O'Leary, wake up. When his fire happened, his brother said, John, stay awake, don't fall asleep. Stay awake, don't fall asleep. When Jack Buck came to his hospital bed, he said, kid, wake up. And John realized how important a message that was from Sister Gertrude. If you look at every great spiritual leader, they talk about being awake. The word Buddha, that means awakened. To be awake means to see, to be aware, to be willing, to be open, to be expressive. That when we are awake, we are more engaged in life. That we are more alive, that we are more caring and aware of other people as well as ourselves. To be awake is a powerful and important thing. That we need to ask ourselves, in what area of my life am I sleeping and sleepwalking, and where is life calling me to wake up? John and his wife got a phone call once, and he could not believe the phone call. His parents' house was on fire. And he thought to himself, how could this happen again? What are the odds that this house is burning down again? He and his wife drive and get there. And what happened was the parents, one of them put some toast in a toaster oven, and they went outside and didn't check it. It caught on fire. By the time they heard the smoke alarm, it was too late, and the house burned down. So they're sitting outside, the parents and John and his wife, and John says, it'll be okay. And interestingly, when John finished his college degree in finance, he decided to become a contractor. For some reason, he wanted to show people. It wasn't just a desk job. He wanted to do something physical, even though people think he couldn't. He didn't really enjoy it per se. He kind of did, and he was good at it. But he knew it wasn't his calling. But yet, he realized now that there was a purpose. Because now, being a contractor, he could rebuild the very home that he burned down. He could rebuild a home that was his parents. He could rebuild something that was more worthy and more valuable, more meaning to him than anything else. He could help his parents with all the anxiety and stress that goes on with building a house. And he felt that it was a great way that God was giving him a new way to show his parents love, to show them care. And it woke him up to live life on a much more conscious level. My father died a decade after my injury, and a decade later, I still lived at home. I still didn't have a degree. I still didn't have a job. I still didn't have any career thought or process, and I still wasn't independent, and I still did not feel like a man at all. Other than my father never saw me really be independent, never really saw me be successful, except winning some speech contests. What was kind of cool was a couple of times, because I can't carry or lift the awards, was my dad came up with me, and they shook my hand, and he took the award for me, and that was cool. So when he died, I was sad, but I was even more disappointed in myself that I hadn't made anything of my life or myself at the time. My sisters and my family decided that we would all write my father notes and put it in the casket as a way to express our love that it would be with him. And a few weeks, like about a month earlier, it was Christmas. My dad died in January. I wrote my dad a note about how much I loved him and how proud I was and honored to be his son. But the note I wrote this time was different. This note was a promise. It was a promise to my dad that I would do something with my life, that I would develop the level of work ethic and integrity and care for people that he expressed, that I would make a difference and do something, and I would become a man. I wanted to have a good adult relationship with my dad, and I didn't get that opportunity. I wanted my dad to see me independent, and that didn't happen. But I do believe that when my father died, it was my wake-up call to say, no more excuses, stop sleepwalking through life and wake up and start really living. And that was a huge, huge turning point for me. What truth is it that you haven't awakened to? What love is it that you haven't awakened and opened your heart to express? What gifts is it? What area in life is calling you to wake up? Sometimes it isn't the fun and easy parts where we wake up. Somebody once said, when my life was shaking at its foundations, I went to God only to find out that God was doing the shaking. That sometimes for us to wake up, it is not through the most easy experiences. Sometimes our life has to shake. Sometimes things happen that don't look pretty or fun, but those are opportunities and openings for us to awaken. Jesus said, in this life there will be trials and tribulations, and there are, but be of good cheer. You know why? Because we always have a choice. We can choose to snooze, or we can choose to wake up and to be fully responsible for our lives. And the best choice we could ever make is to choose love. To wake up to love, to commit ourselves to be an expression of love, to share and give that love. Because when we do, we will be on fire and we will live a radically inspired life. God bless you all.